Hey guys, Chief Fruity here. This is the behind the scenes for Outcasts. So for this video I'm going to be showing you how I made the track, some arrangement, and some synths and effects put on the synths, how I made the synths, and all that good stuff. So let's go right into it. So this is the project for Outcasts, and 35 audio tracks were used, and another thing I want to point out is that the BPM is 117. So that is kind of a slower BPM for a dubstep track like this, but I kind of wanted to have almost a chill out vibe for some of the sections in this track. So for the intro, the first thing is there's this kick. And it's just a plain kick with some reverb playing right off the beginning along with a crash to give it a good hit on the number one, like this. And along with that, it starts in with some pads. So these are the pads that are playing. So octave lower. So these pads are playing through a harmor, and I made this in with a harmor, and the filter's not all the way up, because then it got a little too harmonized. I wanted to take out some of the harmony, so I decreased the filter values, as well as it has 7 voices of unison, basically to kind of give it a good pad string feel. And then some harmonizers are in, and I turned down the pitch just a tiny bit because it was a little bit too high up here in B, so I turned it down a little bit, got a little bit more what I was looking for there. And then through the volume, I have it running through a volume envelope, and this is what is getting the pads to fade in and out. So you can see how that's working. It's just engaged. This is the default envelope here, and that's all I'm running through a harmor. To make pads like this, it's actually really simple. And then I run that through track 14, and I have some reverb going through track 14. So that's what I have for the pads, and then here's the pattern that I have them playing. So first off, the first note is just in B, and I know this is not this, and I know that this is a dissonant B chord, and I wanted to have this here. So when the pads are playing, the dissonant chord does not sound very nice, but when it mixes in with this lead and some noise, it sounds a lot better. Because this is a pretty dissonant track, and I was going for that, kind of like a chill out vibe as well. So that's for the pads here. This is the pluck decay of the pads, because I was experimenting with some pluck, but ended up not using it, so I fully engaged it. So for the noise here, it's pretty simple. It's just going through a GMS. I just turned up the noise, and I have some filter cutoff running. And it's on to track 9, and I just turned it up a tiny bit to get it heard a little bit more. And then it's just cut off with the noise going through here. So it's pretty simple there. The lead here, this is the lead playing this. So the pluck is down. Normally it would be like this. So the reason why I don't have the pluck up all the way is because when it's up all the way, it doesn't fade out, and it just stays with this really loud, kind of almost air horn sounding feel. So I turned it down a little bit to get it to fade out. So that I used about this at like 60% as max for the track. But into how the synth was made was it has 4 voices of unison. It has 0 harmonies. The filter's all the way up. I turned up the pitch a little bit because at default it was a little bit too low, so I turned it up to about here. And then I have some global low frequency oscillator phase through keyboard mapping. So the higher pitch, the higher the LFO would be, and the lower pitch, the lower the LFO would be. So even if I turn down the octave, it's down here. So that's what I did on that, as well as I have some unison phase with keyboard mapping as well. So the higher pitch would have more unison, and the lesser pitch would have less unison. So that's all I have going through the envelopes of Harmor. Just a LFO with keyboard mapping, and then a unison phase with keyboard mapping. This is on the track 17, where I turned the volume down. It was getting pretty loud. As well as I put on a fruity chorus with full depth to get this really chorusy. Some EQ boosting highs. Some effects with reverb. A wave shaper. And this wave shaper is running some slight distortion. This would be a normal wave. So that's what I have going there. This is the pattern it's playing. And I have a pluck envelope fading the pluck in, which is what I was talking about earlier with a pluck right here, which is here at 0, and I put it to about 60% as being 100. So that's what I have for the lead, the pads, and this noise. I got crashes. The drums are fading in and out with mode X, like so. So I'll just play you the drum loop here. So that's the drum loop I have going for most of the track. So now then it breaks into this rise section. So in this rise section, then I start fading in all the bass and a kick roll, and I have the lead playing a faster. I just put it on double time right here. As well as the pluck is slowly fading in, and then the lead gets to even faster on the second part. But first, I'm going to show you this bass synth. So this bass synth was used by turning down the pitch all the way. It's playing at B4, so it's not super low, but with the pitch all the way down, it would make it more, like if you kept it up here, like a B3. This is turning down the octave 1. And then I have the harmonizer amount up all the way. You may like it more without the harmonizer, but what I like that the harmonizer adds is it kind of increases the pitch in a way and makes it much more vocally. So that's the reason why I added in some harmonizer, and it works with an effector I'll show you later. I added some prism amount, and what this prism amount is doing is it is modulating through this envelope, and it is bringing it from 100%, which is mapped to being right here is 100%, back to 0%, here, which would be mapped to right here. So it's going from 100 about here to 0 in this frame of time, which is making this. So you can even see it here in the mapping where the prism goes from 100 to 0 back to 100 to 0 through this envelope. So I have the prism mapping like that. That gives it even more of a vocal effect. Without the prism it would be like this. So having the prism modulating like this from 100 to 0 really fast is a pretty cool trick to use for basses. It can get it more vocally, or just give it some modulation that you could be missing out on. I also have a phaser mix going through here. I was experimenting with using a phaser, but I ended up not using it. But that was what I was working on. And I have a harmonic level here that I messed with from the saw wave. I really just turned it up to get it a little bit sharper. You can tell that the harmonic would normally be like this, but that got it pretty dull, so I got it sharper. And then I have some, I have harmonic randomness. And I just did some kind of random stuff in here to mess with the harmonics. And that's all I have going for this Harmor. And then now onto the mixer track. I have an EQ boosting some lows. And I have an effects on the vocal tab. So this is what I was talking about with the effector, is it's on vocal and it's affecting of the vocally effect. So without this, it'd be like this. So this is really what gives it the vocal effects, but the harmonizer amount and the prism modulation that I was showing you here do help with the vocals a little bit. And I have a compressor that's compressing the lows, the most, but everything, because through the vocals it was getting really loud, so I compressed it. And then for modulating here, what I have modulating is this is actually the mode X for the effector. It's mode X, it's modulating it. I really love playing with basses like that. So I have that modulating, and then this is the channel volume envelope that I have fading it in. So this is the pattern that it's playing here. And that is going with this. Oh yeah, the volume's muted. So that is the patterns that this is playing. This is modulating mode X on the effector tab. So definitely use the effector. Distortion and flanger and lo-fi and phaser also work pretty well for vocally, but vocal is obviously the best if you want to go for vocal. So that's for the first bass here. Now for the second bass, which is a FM synth. This one is a little bit more complicated. Let's see, where's this playing? This is a B1. So down here. One octave higher. So this bass. So this one also uses mode Y as well as mode X. So first I'm going to show you like the harmonics kind of stuff in the matrix, and then I'll show you how I got the mode X and Y. So first, operator number 1 is going through a sine wave at 2. Operator 2 is going through this saw wave right here through 2. Operator 3 is going through a normal saw wave at 2.1. So this 2.1 here kind of gives it some variation, because if this one was done just right at 2 like this, it sounds really flat, and that is because it would basically, if everything's running through a 2, it basically would be running a C to another C, you know, going through 2. So they would have the same frequency, but if it's 2.1, it would basically be like a C through a C sharp. Then basically what that would be doing is it would mess with the frequency and would give it some dissonance. So this would be good dissonance in this case, because it gives it some variation and doesn't sound super flat. So messing with the 2 point something would definitely be something cool to do that you could consider. Number 4 goes right to a 64 through its triangle wave. Number 5 is a 60 through a saw wave. So it does drop down, and this is another thing that would not be straight on to an octave. So this is another thing that would kind of be shaking it a little bit, like I was talking about right here. Since it's not messing with this frequency, but it's just right here. It's 60 to 64. Basically, be like running an A through an E, not an accord. And then operator 6 is a sine wave at 2 for the frequency values. So the whole thing comes together to make this. Or this. Depending on the mode Y. So in the matrix here, operator 2 is at negative 100%. And at what negative 100, this would be plus 100, this would be negative 100. It basically would just be running it the opposite direction, which if you're doing it through nothing else wouldn't make too much of a deal except it's going through operator 3 with just plus 100. So because it's doing that, 2 is going through 3, which has this 1 here, so it's giving it more of a shakiness, since it's also negative and plus 100. And then they're going to the output. There's an output here. This output's set to positive, and this one's set to negative. So there also is some reverse there, which basically would end equalizing everything out in the end. And then so 4 is about negative 20% engaged. 5, I have negative something percent, because this would be the 0. Over here would be the plus 100 and negative 100. And then operator 6, they're both about negative 100s engaged through 4 through 6 and 5 through 6. So 4 is going through 6, 5 is going through 6, and then 6 is going straight to the output. So that's what's going on inside of the matrix here. Now for mode Y, operator 1, mode X is going through there, mode Y should be going through operators 4, 5, just operators 4 and 5. So mode Y is going through the modulator on mode Y, and then 5 is going through the modulator on mode Y. So I don't remember exactly what I did, but I could have messed with the volume as well. Check through the volume. No, it would be modulator on mode Y. Okay, yeah, so 4, 5 modulator through mode Y, and they're not going through mode X. The only thing that's going through mode X is 3 and 1. So I really hope I got everything going on inside of this, just because there's a lot going on here. But yeah, it might take you a while to copy that if you're interested in the sound, but mainly this might just be something to take note of that you could put into something else you're doing. So that was track 11. And I have track 11 going through this EQ here. Engage the filter all the way so you can see what's going on. So you can tell most of the harmonics are on the higher side. And I have it going through a Wreckage, which I put at full band values. And I put this at full band values because it got it a lot more hard hitting, as well as I put it to the female vocal type, and full wetness and full SP. And a fast distortion, because I was experimenting with some distortion, but I ended up not using it. So now for all of these automation clips, this is the mode X clip, this is the distortion clip here. And then after the distortion, I have this mode Y clip. So I'm going to mute this volume one. That's the clip it's running through. And that is how that synth was made. Now, this clip, I'll just solo this one out. So this is mode Y, it goes from 100 to 0. And then it repeats from there on. So that's what I have going for the FM bass. What else I have? So kicks, speeding up. And I have reversed crashes at this vocal sample here.
That's right!
So this vocal sample I ran through track 10, where I just put on a Wreckage and some reverb. And then I have some noise going in. So that is it for the rise. Now to get into the drop here. So for the drop here, I showed you most of how these synths were made and what they're doing. So this clip down here is just the volume of the synth. And then right here I have these. Oh, that's way too low of an octave. Because this is a little. So where's it playing exactly? B5, okay. I mean, octave higher. Which here would be going from B5 all the way up to F6. With a slide note. So basically this synth I made in a Citrus. And first off, I put the pitch down here because it was getting pretty high when this was. So I wanted to bring that down. Operator 1 I have running through a rectangle wave. 2 is rectangle, and then 3 is sine, 4 sine, and then the rest are sine waves. The pitch frequency just stays 2 for all of them. So for operator 1 I have this fully engaged and then decreasing value as it goes to the output. And then on the main one I have 2 for the pitch 2 voices of unison, and then the pitch is all the way down. And for one mode, just checking if I had mode X enabled, and I didn't, so I just did pitch envelope to do this, to bring it up on the pitch envelope, and I did this through 1 through 4 because I did not use 5 or 6, so I just used it through every operator I was doing. Brought the pitch from 0 to 100 pretty fast to get this in. And that's going through track 12, where I have a Vocodex here, which is actually running full band values and a full band gain multiplier. So without the Vocodex it'd be like this. So I added in the Vocodex to really kind of equalize it because it was getting really high of a frequency. So I put a wetness and SG all the way up, and the vocal type set to about 50% to female. And I have an EQ, which is doing very little, but it's just kind of boosting up some lows and some highs a little bit. Some distortion because I wasn't messing with distortion, and a reverb through the effector, and then a reverb through the fruity reverb here. So that's what I have going for that synth, and that's just about it for the drop. Well, I'll show you the drum loop here. So this is the drum loop. So this is the first one, right here. This is the second one. And I have the third one. And the fourth one. So that's the drum loop there. As well as I have some crashes positioned around. I also have this little thing. So just playing down here. And yes, this was playing throughout the entire drop. So this synth uses 9 voices of unison, and that is really what just unifies the synth without the unison. And then I have, this is the sine, what was the saw wave. I did this to it. So this is the wave it's going through to make that. I don't know what that would be. It kind of looks like a squished saw wave in a way. And then what I turned on to get the pan going from side to side, I think was the trim here. Yeah, it was the trim. I turned this up to full. And this is the panning that it's running through. I even ran it through some pan here, going through an envelope. And then I ran it through filter 1 frequency, which is doing this. And then this, well, I already showed you that. So that's what's going on inside of Harmore. And then on track 20, I have some EQ boosting the highs, some reverb, a wave shaper, which is this. So it's going, well, I'll get this out because you can't see because my face is in the way. But it's running through this wave, and I have it very short here and longer here. And it just kind of brings us some distortion. Most of the distortion's right here, so that's why I made this peak right there. And I ran it through a Vocodex. So what this Vocodex is really doing is, this is pretty much a default Vocodex. I just turned out some SG a little bit and some real to kind of work with the reverb, as well as just vocode it a little bit. This is it without the Vocodex and with it. And I just have this running through the drop. There's kind of just something else going on. and I have some sub bass going through. You know, just a sine wave at really low pitch. And that's it for this drop. Then for drop B, well, first I'll show you this part, because it does glitch out for the second drop, where it does this, which actually is the same thing as this exact loop here. Just I slowed it down and I dragged it out a little bit longer. As you can tell, it's the same thing going on, just it goes out for longer. So that's what I have going on there. Then here it has different pitch. And then for drop B, I'm just doing this. So I can't play the whole thing because my computer will get really laggy because I'm doing recording software and FL Studio. But I can play this. So this is the loop here. That's the first loop, and this is the second loop, which is actually the same thing. So the automation it's going through, this is the automation for the first loop, where it goes 0 to 100 to 0 really fast. And then the second loop, where it does not bring it down as much. And again, this modulation was all mode X from the bass. It's all mode X on the effector. So that's what's going on in there. And then I have this FM synth, which is running this. This is the pattern it's going through down here. And then the modulation. So this is, again, this is the cutoff, this is the distortion, this is the mode Y, and this is the volume. And this one's probably my favorite. So it has the same automations, just the only thing I did is I took out the little slide note up here for variation. And it just repeats that through the drop B. For the second section though, I drag this out for a little bit longer and I start the measure on the and of 1 instead of 1. So I'll see if I can play this or if it lags out or not, but we'll see. But it does this. I'll have to give you some context from back here. So it actually started on the and of 1 and there's this little bit of dead space right here. And then it goes back into the verse. So I brought it into the verse was I put a kick on the 1 here. Just a kick. With a crash. To kind of signify something's ending. Just like a... And then I had this playing. As well as this playing in there. So that's the same thing, just pan to left and right. And then I got this playing with a pluck envelope. And then some pads here. And then the pads are playing a G chord. As well as I have noise coming in. And then that makes the verse. Or it goes right into the verse here. And then in the verse right here, I got the drum loop playing. This is the same drum loop from the beginning. And it changes to this. As well as I have this bass fading out, like this. So how I did this is I just did the mode X automation in the piano roll. I put out all the notes in B. Each one's panned differently, separately to the left and right, and then I have the volume bringing it down. So it does that at the very start of the verse. What else have I got here? this is the modulation for the drums, because back here they were brought down to 0, and I just brought them up because, wait, where am I? Rise to the drop to the verse. I brought them up again just in case, because I don't want them to go silent randomly. And then I have this lead going. So that's panned to the left, and this one's panned to the right. No, this one's panned to the left. And then I have lead playing here. Again, the pluck is on full now. I'm just playing this. The same pattern as before. And then for the second part, I added an extra note. So again, like I was saying before, this is a very dissonant track. And I have the same pads going through and then exiting and coming and leaving and exiting noise. That didn't make sense, but I have noise going in. So that's what I got going for here. For the bass, I just have some sub. Just sine wave at low frequency. That's what I got going for the verse. And then it does this to the downfall. So how I did that was I just basically just silenced everything. And I did a kick. So it went like... And then there's a kick on the 1, so and then it started. And I have the drums still in, but fading out. And then I brought the pluck to 0, and the lead's doing this at double time now. And then it just keeps doing this till it goes back up to the rise, which is the same exact rise. This is the same copy as the other rise that I showed you from before. But the second drop is different here. When it does this synth, it does this on the 1. So how I got it to do that is it's the same FM synth, just I brought the Y all the way down. Because the FM synth has a Y filter as well. The faint lead's still in, everything's the same, just I did some variation with the synth's automation clips. But back to drop beats, the same. Though here I have it doing this. Which again, I brought the Y down to 0 there. So that's it for the drop B, and then it goes back into the verse the same way. The verse is actually the same, I didn't do too much progression here. And then I have it fade out again the same way. Everything's just coming down. As well as the pluck leaving, I have it in decreasing because I double timed it and then I brought it back to normal time as I faded out. So and then I have the pluck going down here. So this is the pluck for the pads. And then I just slowly have it fading out. So there's not really too much to go over here, it just fades out. I already showed you how all the synths were made, their automation from before, so it's just fading out here. You can probably tell by just listening to the track. So that is it for Outcasts. Again, it has 35 audio tracks and 117 BPM if you missed that at the beginning. I used a total of 20 mixer tracks, which is not very many, but this also didn't have too many synths going. So this is the Outcasts project. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm doing a new upload schedule for this channel. Instead of kind of just every other day or once every 3 days, I'm going to do one upload every Friday, guaranteed. So that could either be a weekly drop, it could be a BTS of a drop, it could be a BTS of a track like this, or it could be a new song, or it could just be some other kind of video. I don't have a new series yet, but I could think of something. So this is it for this week. Next week is probably going to be a drop because I'm going to be at a music camp next week. So that's what's going to be going on for me. So hope to see you guys next week, and until then, bye.